Hello, I'm Sue Clark Wittenberg from Ottawa, Ontario. This is part 3 of my life story, the Sue Clark story, part 3. In part 2, the last end of it, that I had left the Brockville Psychiatric Hospital after 6 months. I was there from March to September 1973. I had turned 18 in April, and that a social worker took me down to Ottawa to a halfway house for psychiatric survivors run by Irene Despard, a nun, who, rest her soul, she passed away a number of years ago. I was there a month. I didn't like all the rules, and I left, and I went to live with my Aunt Olive, my mother's sister, in Ottawa, near it's called Alpine Avenue, near the Lincoln Field Shopping Center. My aunt died in BC a number of years ago from cancer. Anyhow, well, I was getting $120 from welfare, and my room cost $60. I didn't have a lot to eat. That was 1973. We used to go dancing at the Bayshore Hotel. I didn't have much money. I'd sip on a Diet Coke for a number of hours, and my aunt went. And a man came by my table, and I don't know why, but I said, "Sit down." He was tall, about 6'2", blonde hair, in his 40s. I was 18. I said, "Sit down." I said, "What's your name?" He said, "My name is Fred." I said, "I'm Sue." So we started talking and talking and talking for a few hours, and we danced. I remember one song that I danced to with him was "Tie a Yellow Around the Old Oak Tree" with Tony Orlando. So we got along, and he took me to his house and his anyhow, and he had 2 sons. He had a 2-bedroom apartment on Pinecrest, and he had 2 sons at home, 14 and 16, and we woke them up, and he asked me for my ID. And I showed him my ID. I was 18. He wanted to make sure I was legal. And one thing developed into another after a few weeks. We fell in love. He was a nice man. He worked at the purification plant, the one at the Britannia plant and the one at the Lemieux Island. He was a horticulturist. His name was Fred Wagner, W-E-G-N-E-R. His full name was Fritz Karl-Heinz Wagner. He was from Berlin. He was a border guard at the wall, and he escaped. You know about East Germany? There was a wall from the West Germany to the east of Germany. And then he met someone, a German girl, and they moved to Canada, and they had a few kids. Anyhow, after a year and a half, we moved down to Forest Street. We got married. We had 2-bedroom. The kids shared 1 bedroom, the boys. Their names were Manfred and Walter Wagner. We had a wedding at home. It was nice. I invited some friends. I invited a girl from high school, Champlain High, Nancy Benoit. She was married to Steve Cape and his friends from work. We had a few gifts, and my stepson Manfred worked at the deli at the across the street at the Britannia Mall, and he got us a 3-tier cake, wedding cake. It was really nice. So anyhow, you know, Fred had a drinking problem. I think a lot of his drinking problems were from not seeing his family in East Germany, his mother and his siblings. He drank a lot. There was a warning sign from him right before I was married. He threw me on the bed when he was mad. That was a bad warning sign. He started throwing me around. But since my father happened to throw my mother around, I didn't think it was much of a problem. I've seen it before. I got used to seeing people being thrown around, and even myself. So anyhow, we moved down to Bayshore, near the Bayshore Shopping Center. We had a townhouse. It was really nice. He was drinking more and more all the time. One day he threw me against the wall, and I went to a women's shelter. I'd seen an article in the Citizen newspaper, so I saw the phone number and I memorized it. Before that, I was sleeping in bed, and he opened the door. Thank God that the hallway light was on, and he threw one of these box fans, a big box fan, at me. I took my arm up. Thank God I saw him. Cut my arm, and I called the cops, and they laughed at me. I had a fresh cut, and my husband was out in the parking lot, drunk as a skunk, and laughing. So, in those days, in the late 70s, you know, the domestic abuse was not taken seriously by the cops. And then after that, we moved to Wellington Street. And that was across from the hospital where I was born, the Ottawa Grace Hospital. We didn't have a balcony. We used to argue all the time. He used to come in at night, late at night, drunk as a skunk, and he used to rape me all the time. Then I'd have to get up at 7 o'clock and go to work. I was a secretary. So I separated many times from there. I went to the women's shelter. And eventually, I went to live with a guy I met, Robert Lalonde. He lived on Gloucester. He was a nice guy until he cheated on me after 3 months of living with him. So I went back to Fred. Fred had won the lotto. He won $25,000. So I said, Fred, I want you to do something with your money. So we bought a condo where I was staying as a teenager with my parents, 158A MacArthur Road. We lived in Unit 404. I was there a month when he strangled me. And I took off, so I only lived there for a month. So I lost my new TV, all my new furniture, my stove, my fridge. I lost everything. I couldn't talk after he strangled me, and I called a friend, and I went, I couldn't talk. She says, that you, Sue? And I got into my car, the car that he helped to pay with his lottery, and I drove down to Draper Avenue. I was depressed. But before that, I had met a guy called John Clark a few months before at a Christmas party. I called him a few months later, said, I want to talk to you, I'm lonely. So we talked and dated for a number of months. Then I went to live with John Clark, who became my second husband. His mother wasn't very nice. When we lived in the apartment in their house, she was mean. She didn't want me to move out, me and John Clark, to live in Ottawa. She's mean to me. So anyhow, for no reason. So anyhow, John's sister had a baby right before we left the apartment in Hull, Quebec. And I had another warning sign from John Clark right before we were married. I asked him a question. He slapped me across the face in public. I shouldn't have married him, but then I was used to, being treated that way. I didn't have much self-esteem, and my dad was a wife abuser. Fred Wagner was a wife abuser. I had low self-esteem. I didn't know the signs, really. I was in a cycle of violence, they call it. When a kid is abused, and then they marry someone, well, I married someone like Dad every time. He wasn't a good role model. So anyhow, we went to live on near his job, the Ottawa Civic Hospital job, Loretta Avenue, on a ground apartment. We stayed there a few years, and then after that, we went to live on Bayswater because it was a lot cheaper. He worked at the Ottawa Civic Hospital as a porter. You know, when you go into a hospital and the people that will show you your room, and if you're in a wheelchair, they wheel you around from one section of the hospital to another. Well, he used to beat me too. Right before we got married on Loretta Avenue, he had thrown me on the bed hard, and I'd gone to the washroom, and it looked like a big piece of liver, and years ago a friend told me that was a miscarriage. So I never got pregnant after that, but I had a miscarriage apparently. She had one too, and she told me that's what it looks like. When I went to the hospital, they couldn't confirm, but they said that your girlfriend here is very sick. She got pelvic infection and everything else, but I had a miscarriage in 1980, anyhow. So I don't talk about it much. When people ask me whether I had any children, well, I don't discuss that. It's a bit painful. I wanted kids, but after the miscarriage, I guess I couldn't. Anyhow, because it must have damaged me. Anyhow, so then after that, we went to Bayswater and made friends with Linda and Michael Greenwell. He was an okay guy, I thought. His father was Greenwell on the CTV. His father was from England, and he abused him somewhat. He said one time that his father had taken him and put him over a balcony, holding him by his feet. He wouldn't feed him much at home. He'd leave him alone at home with no food and that. He had to scrounge around. So anyhow, I kicked out John Clark in the late 80s and found him a room. I was at Bayswater, 57 Bayswater. When Michael came in, he was a little intoxicated. I trusted him, though. I've known him for years. Then my roommate, Lynn, took off for the night. And then Michael said, close the lights. And he's playing a joke on me, I thought. I was laying on the couch. Well, he didn't play a joke on me. He actually jumped on me and raped me. I found out later that he raped another friend of mine and another girl in her apartment building. But anyhow, that happened, and I had to move out because I didn't have a lot of money. And I applied to Ottawa Housing, and I got it because I had police records of being abused. I went to 1485 Caldwell, a big housing project in Ottawa, in 1988, and it was not a good thing. A lot of violence there. The first 3 months I was there, a man had killed someone down in the parking lot. He was a visitor from Montreal. That was not good. I heard a lot of violence on my floor. That was not good. I was only living on $600 a month. I had hardly any food. My brother had a job of $30,000. I got no help from my parents or my brother. And anyhow, so I moved from there, and then I went here in the West End. I won't give out my address where I'm living now, but I've been here 21 years. It's not good. There's a lot of addictions here, some violence, some people stealing cars, vandalizing in the basement. I keep to myself mostly. I'm more of a recluse now because of the danger here. Last year I broke my right shoulder. I hit a pothole with my wheelchair, fell off, and last October I broke my left shoulder. So I am in recovery of broken shoulders. I have medical staff that come in to wash me up. So about the life story now. Okay then, you heard about Michael Greenwell raping me. And what I did in the late 80s is I went to the police. I wanted to report it, and they told my friend and I, we have too many sexual assaults in Ottawa to deal with all of them. So we were going to have a protest on the street. A detective that I don't like interviewed me, and basically 2 of the policemen went to his house in Vanier. I don't know what they said, but he never bothered me again. I saw him one time at the West End Hotel one time. There was a little musical fest. I looked at him, he didn't move. So I don't know what they did. The Ottawa police went to his house and must have scared the heck out of him because he never bothered me again. So anyhow, when I was at Caldwell, I went to St. Luke's Church. I found a women's center there, which moved down to Somerset and Elgin, St. Joe's. And I went to, it was called The Well, and then I went to one on Laurier Avenue called St. Joe's. I went every day, Monday to Friday, to soup kitchens to help to supplement my food from 1990 to 2010 years. I learned a lot about the homeless people going there, the drug addicts, the prostitutes and everything. I never judged them. I had a hard life, but I learned a lot by going to the soup kitchens. They helped you with your meals, your breakfast and lunch. They gave food. We played bingo. We got free clothes, food if we needed it, like toothbrush, toothpaste, and that. The Well and St. Joe's are very good in Ottawa. If anybody has any money who's listening, I'd say to make a donation to them. The Well and St. Joe's Women's Center. They're good people there. I haven't been there for 10 years. My income on the ODSP is slightly higher. Not much, but I have to make do with very little. I don't get help from my mother or father, nor my brother. He's on ODSP, and I help my brother to get on a pension. What else can I say now? In 1987, I called Don White's in Toronto because I'd gone down to the market area in Ottawa to a magazine shop, and I saw a magazine called Phoenix Rising, the voice of the psychiatrist. I called Don White in Toronto. I said, what's that all about? He says, well, I oppose psychiatry. He told me why. And then I invited him down to Ottawa, down to Bayswater, where John Clark and I had lived, my second husband and I lived. He brought a whole box of these magazines. I met him at the train station. We had a wonderful weekend. He's a wonderful man, intelligent. He is a former psychologist that worked at the Toronto Mental Health Center. He quit. He didn't like the way psychiatric survivors were being treated. And so I started a group called Ottawa. It's Advocates for Psychiatric Patients for a few years. Then it disbanded, and it is now called Psychiatric Survivors of Ottawa. I'm the founder. It's been running now. It has paid staff who are psychiatric survivors. It's at the Brontons. It's located at the Bronson Center, 211 Bronson Center, and it's there. I also founded the Canadian, it's Advocates for Psychiatrized People. Me and my husband founded, it's called the International Campaign to Ban Electroshock. And so I've been very busy. Social action and doing protests are very good for depression. It gets all your anger out. So what I do is I do something positive. I protest. I've been an advocate at the Brockville Psychiatric Hospital. I went with a mother to Ward H, where I was, where her son, who had some of the, the coordination problems, was beat up in the shower by a male nurse because he was taking too long. I went to the Royal Ottawa Hospital to visit a man who had, his eyes were black and blue. The staff beat him up. His mother wanted him to have electroshock, and his father said no. I've seen that. I've gone to jails to advocate for people who are psychiatric survivors, 2 of them. Went to the it's Ottawa Detention Center. And I've helped people, give them food. My group, OEP, had a crisis line. That's how I met a boyfriend of mine. He called my group. He wanted to help me, Stefan Forte. But unfortunately, in 1995, I was not with him any longer, and he committed suicide in 1995 before Christmas. I worked at the Royal, Ottawa Hospital, the first hospital that I admitted myself to. Marion Crow, a peer of mine, was working for the education department, and she called me up, and my nickname is Joy Lee. Hi, Joy Lee, it's Marion, she says. I said, hi, Marion, what do you want? And she says, I have something to ask you. I'm working at the Royal Ottawa Hospital. I said, oh, no, that torture chamber? She says, I work in public affairs, and I have a new program called, it's called the Consumers as Experts, meaning we are the experts because we have gone through the system. I said, oh, heck no, I can't vote for them. They torture me. She says, we want to hire you because you are on the left, anti-psychiatry. We have people sitting on the fence and some people pro-psychiatry. She says, some of the departments, like the nursing staff, etc., the psychiatric doctors, will hire you for a session, and then you speak one after another about your experiences. I said, okay. So I got a honorarium. Of course, I told the ODSP. I worked there for 10 years on and off. I got a voucher sometimes for Loblaws, the grocery stores. And I would say my piece. I would say that I was tortured here, You sent me to Brockville. I was very open. I told him exactly what I wanted to. I didn't mince my words, and I don't know whether I am the only psychiatric survivor who is, okay, the anti-psychiatry hired by a psychiatric hospital that gives electroshock and the whole bit. I don't know, but anyhow. Mary and I still see each other. She works in Cochrane, Ontario. She's a mental health worker, and I just saw her a few weeks ago. She drives around in Cochrane and helps people out, psychiatric survivors. Her husband died in 1995. He took a bunch of pills and killed himself. It's just too bad. I lost a lot of friends that way, okay? I gotta tell you this, very painful. My cousin, Marcel Ligari, in 1981, his wife was pregnant. He had a little girl. They separated. He was working at the Ottawa Civic in the food department. He left. He wanted to go into a new business venture, but it failed. He's admitted to the Royal Ottawa Hospital, where I was initially. He had a car in the parking lot. He escaped out of the ward, took his car, went down to the Champlain Bridge, jumped into the rapids, and he died. I wasn't at his funeral because I was at the Queensway Carleton psych ward at the time. I lost another friend called Christy. She lived across from the Westgate Shopping Center, a big apartment building. She's talking to her mother on the phone. She says, "Just a minute, Mom." She took her rabbit apparently and jumped off the 10th balcony with her rabbit. She was depressed. Another friend, Lee, I can't say their last names obviously because their families live in Ottawa. I don't want to be sued, eh? So anyhow, what happened was, she was in her apartment near the Curlywood Shopping Center and took a bunch of pills and died. I didn't know about it until a month later a friend told me. Another friend, he hung himself in his apartment. He was hanging around with people that were kind of strange, and he hung himself. I have another acquaintance that he acted out. He lived at the same apartment as Christy across from the Westgate Shopping Center. He was acting out. Someone called the police. They went to his apartment. The cop sat on his chest, and he couldn't breathe, and he died. And I know other people who died too. I just don't want to get into it. It's very, it upsets me very bad, and I have a hard time to discuss it. I will just try to talk about the ones I can handle. But every day I think about them. Psychiatry is a sham. Psychiatry is not a real science. It's a fraud. You know that big book, the Psychiatrist's Bible, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders? They have about 300 now, eh? Stuttering, raving, selfies, you take a picture of yourself, selfies and all this, eh? Normal behavior, eh? It's all a crock. Mental illness does not exist. There is no test, no scientific proof that mental illness exists. It's all a fraud. It's all a crock, as I call it. Psychiatric drugs are brain disabling. In the 18 years that I was in psychiatric hospitals, called being psychiatrized, from 1972 to 1990, I had 13 different types of psychiatric medications and 15 different types of psychiatric labels, diagnosis. Dr. David Healy, the world's expert on psychiatric drugs, said, "Sue, 7 of your 13 pills cause brain damage." You know, I had electroshock in Brockville. On my 5th electroshock, my heart stopped. Electroshock always causes brain damage. I told you about that. See Breggin.com, BREGGIN.com. Lots of studies and proof that electroshock always, every time, causes brain damage. Okay? I left psychiatry in 1990. I fired my shrink. I got off the pills cold turkey. Not a good thing to do. It's best to read the book by Dr. Breggin, BREGGIN.com, and see his book section, Coming Off Psychiatric Drugs, if you want to do that. My last psychiatrist, a little lady from India, said, 1989, "You're very intelligent and you speak well. She said, I would believe that most of the psychiatrists were intimidated by you. You speak well and you're intelligent. She said, there's nothing wrong with you. You were an abused child and an abused wife. She said, what you needed was loving husbands and loving parents. My third husband, Stephen Wittenberg, is very loving. I'm lucky the third time around. I made sure that I was alone for 18 years before that. I got divorced in '89 from John Clark, my second husband. I was happy about getting divorced for sure. And then I married Stephen Wittenberg, Stephen Earl Wittenberg from Ottawa. We got married in Ottawa in 2006. He's a good husband. I'm a fragmented person. It means I have many little people. You know the movie Sybil? They used to call it the multiple personality disorders. I don't believe in that label. I don't believe in the label. I'm a fragmented person. If you don't understand, it's best to see the movie Sybil with Sally Field. That's caused by severe abuse in childhood. My husband, he does accept me as I am. When I'm Sheila, 3 years old, talking to him, he understands me. If I'm talking and I am Jake, who's 16 years old, he understands me. I can be outside acting like a little child or talking like a little child, and if someone comes up towards me, my male alters, they call them, little personalities, will protect me. So I have great, like the intuition. I'm very intuitive, and I give readings on intuition. That's my skill. Now, I'm off the medication since 1990, free from psychiatry, and I sought alternative therapy. I went to a lot of social workers. I went to a regression therapist. I suffered the ritual abuse, but I won't get into it. It's too graphic, too painful to talk about. And anyhow, the John Clark, my second husband, he got remarried in the 1990s to another Sue. So there's two Sue Clarks. But now I add Wittenberg. Fred Wagner unfortunately died in 1989, 6 months before the Berlin Wall fell. He didn't see his family for 30 years. It's tragic. Now, this is part 3. I'm going to go to part 4 soon, so good night and take care. Talk to you soon. Sue Clark Wittenberg here in Ottawa, Canada, eh? But